If you've ever taken a long road trip across California, if you've ever visited a national park in California or a state park in California, then most of what I'm going to talk about tonight you already know in your heart. But it goes without saying that an 8-hour drive from Alameda can get you to the world's tallest trees. It can get you to some of the oldest trees. Some of the United States' largest lakes, oldest lakes, expansive deserts, and actually 800 miles of coastline. The fact that California set aside 24 national parks and over 270 state parks is impressive, but not surprising considering where we live. Or is it? What is a park? Just a preserved open space? Where did the idea for having parks even come from? Certainly preserving and protecting open space is not a new or American idea. Persia, Israel, England, Ireland, for centuries have been preserving land and setting it aside so that it cannot be developed or modernized. And they did this at great cost, especially opportunity cost of what else could be used, this land could be used for. And they did this specifically for the value of preserving the land. However, these people who owned the land were the only people who could enjoy the land. Until around the time at the end of the Civil War, about 175 years ago, when the earliest park advocates began to realize that these natural places, so preserved in this manner in the New World, would just continue the cycle of only being accessible to royalty, to the upper class, and to the super wealthy. The truly American idea, the truly, quite frankly, Californian idea, the big shift in thinking that we take for granted today is that natural spaces are set aside by the government for all of us to enjoy. The California State Park System was not set up just to preserve land, but to enable the public to experience these places. This happens all across our nation, and this happened here in California. This is where it started. So I don't think it's going too far to say that our parks are most certainly part of our state's legacy. And the fact that generations past have set aside these lands expressly for us to enjoy makes these places ours, and also makes them our responsibility. So this year, as many of you know, 70 of our 270 plus state parks are scheduled to be closed. And after fighting for a while, along with Michelle, Luna, and others who've been fighting for much longer than me, to raise awareness of park underfunding, I've really tried not to take it for granted that driving around the state, going with my parents year after year, who are right here, these are my parents, to Yosemite, to Point Reyes, to Angel Island, to Mount Diablo, taking for granted that these places are available to us. That for such little cost, sometimes no money at all out of pocket, especially when they give back to us so much. I want to talk a little bit about that. What is it exactly that parks give us? I mean, I've heard that the value of parks described as an escape or a release or a reconnection with nature. You know, John Muir, 150, 160 years ago, described this as saving the American soul from a total surrender to materialism. You know, and I've thought about that quote a lot, and living my modern life in Alameda, full of web design and travel and office politics and something I do called social media strategy, which I still haven't figured out what it is. I live most of my life outside of the present moment. I focus on plans and goals. We all worry to some degree about what people will think when we do one thing or think another. If you're like me, then your daily actions aren't always the things you enjoy most, but we do them because we want to work towards other goals, other objectives. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing, per se. But when we work with purpose in this way, what's important in our lives is rarely situated in the present moment. But when I stand in the face of a natural scene like Del Norte Redwoods or atop a 11,000-foot peak where the bristlecone pines live, I can say wholeheartedly, I am utterly enthralled. I am captivated. But I'm captivated without purpose. I have no goals but to experience what I'm looking at. I have no judgment, and more importantly, the natural world I'm looking at has no judgment of me. I am there and it is there. This break from purpose, to me, is what gives me rest, true rest, not Cancun. I mean, I've never been there, but I can imagine it's probably pretty nice. But getting this break from purpose gives us a reprieve from our past mistakes and a pause from worrying about what is to come. And we don't just have to do this by ourselves. We can do this with others. We can go there with our families, stand amidst nature with perfect strangers, and we can share with each other this absence of purpose that is so glorious. But I want to end tonight with a thought. Parks were created for the public, but now they need the public. By Labor Day 2012, 70 California state parks will be closed in the name of deficit reduction and broader fiscal responsibility. But closing 25% of our parks to reclaim 1/10 of 1% of a $26 billion deficit doesn't really make a bunch of financial sense, especially considering that parks themselves generate $4 billion for the state. And while it's important to not forget our state's current economic problems, also remember that Yosemite was founded in the first months of rubble following the Civil War, and that the majority of California state parks were created during the Great Depression. How will California espouse preservation to the next generation when they watch us underfund the oldest, most extensive, and diverse vision of state preservation in the entire world? How do we learn the importance of conservation when we can no longer visit the places that help us understand what should be conserved? We need everybody to get involved. There is no time in history when times were so tough that people could not act to make a difference for parks, or where they should be kept and thought of as ancillary to more fundamental themes like schools and highways. Parks are fundamental to who we are and understanding ourselves. 175 years ago, parks were established as preserved places that were endowed with public access. And again, today, parks also need public support. These are your parks. These are my parks. If these ideas matter to you, and if what I'm saying resonates with you, then please show your support and get involved. Thank you.